Thank you, Sunita. This slogan, this was authored by Sri Ganapati Muni. Vande Sri Ramanasya Acharyasya Padabjam Yome Dashya Desham Vantam Vantamatitya. So I bow to the lotus feet of the spiritual teacher, Maharshi Ramana, who showed me the Lord shining, transcending darkness. This is from Sri Ramana Chatvarimsha. It started as 21 slokams. This was extended by Sri Bhagavan himself, handpicking other slokas that Sri Ganapati Muni wrote in his letters to Sri Bhagavan, and Bhagavan said, let this be a 40-verse Chatvarimsha. So they had a very close relationship that it is difficult to fathom for a person like me who's very removed from that time. I haven't seen either of them. I'm very thankful to have known about Bhagavan and about Sri Muni, of course. I did prepare several slides, but I'll share this with you like a story rather than strictly going through the slides themselves. Yeah. So this we are seeing here is a notation service, K notation. Very moving biography is his. I have discovered these milestones within Bhagavan's lore about Vasudeva Sastri, notations, Ramana Peri Puranam, and so on, as I was searching for information about Sri Muni. It is true that I'll come back to Sri Notation, sir. It takes a few minutes. And this is generally the sort of ambience at the villages where I grew up, and some 90 years before me, Sri Ganapati Muni grew up as well. You know, so this is called the Visakhapatnam, Vijayanagaram, Srikakulam districts of Andhra Pradesh, coastal Andhra. It is close to Odisha. So that could be a home. That my grandfather's home looked like that in a village that's not very far from Kalavarai, where Sri Ganapati Muni grew up. So that their homes looked like that. These were called Dravida Brahmins. Brahmins who migrated. They were highest in and around Kumbakonam. In the Chola dynasty, some several hundreds of them were sent as administrators and pundits and that sort of thing to various districts, and they went to Andhra Pradesh as well. So Ganapati Muni was steeped in those traditions. Here, he was, by all accounts, is an intellect of extraordinary kind. Yeah. So when Sunita says I am from his family, it's not that I'm from his immediate family. It's just that this Brahmins who settled away from Tamil Nadu, I happen to be born in those same, let's say, clan. Yeah, let's say that. My grandfather, my mother's father, was a disciple of Sri Ganapati Muni, right? But I can say that I am familiar with the lost vestiges of this Vedic Brahminic thought and way of life. But as I was growing up, it was being, I should say, severely attacked, you see. So I feel that I should share this, because who is looking at this Mahatma Ganapati Muni? Last year, Sunita asked me to speak about Sri Muni also, for Aradhana. I could not say yes. And this year, when she asked December, meaning the previous December she asked me, I could not say yes. But this December she asked, and here's what my mindset has been. Sri Bhagavan himself, his photograph is just one picture in our development, And my family, some members of this family were scholars and intellectuals and this sort of thing. My mother is a linguist, and she served in a Roman Catholic missionary school. Now, Roman Catholic missionary schools in the same district, that lake that you're seeing, that mountain, that is, I would grow up looking at that mountain quite a bit. And the lady that I'm showing there Sri Ganapati Muni cared quite a bit, and he agonized about a few things. One is his tapasya, his penance, right? How am I going to use this Vedic tapas, which my ancestors taught me? This is my familiar tradition, and how do I attain God, enlightenment? This was his burning desire right from childhood. It's for the history books. We can get into some of that. Children are going to perform later also. That is one. The other, women are getting a raw deal around me, right? And they're oppressed. And this was obvious to him. This was the case for me also. There were Brahmin widows as I was growing up. And this Vedic religion or Advaita, Adhyatma, Ramayana, Kirtanas and so on, they're relegated to, in general, it's a tacit rule, right? To widows, people who don't have money, people who don't have much education or social power and that sort of thing. Those are the ones who pursue Bhagavan. The others would use scholarship, even Bhagavad Pada's works, Shankara's philosophy, and the orthodoxy for their own aggrandizement. Broadly, I think that's a fair assessment, at least what I have seen, you see. So, Ganapati Muni was quite disturbed by the plight of women and untouchables, who are called outcasts, which clearly is a scourge of Indian society. So these things bothered him, and he said, I'm going to use, and then the last thing is freedom for his country, for his motherland. So here he says, oh mother, I take refuge at thy feet so that my country may prosper. This country long beaten, shattered and weeping. May the enemies of Dharma perish, may friends of our land prosper. This would gladden my heart, O divine mother, I take refuge at thy feet. This is coming from Sri Vidya Upasana. My mother is an adherent of that. There is another trait in these families, some of them, it's called hypergraphia, compulsive writing. Secular science, psychology, philosophy, cognitive science, they pursue that. So there is a Harvard professor, she published a book on this. She was a kind of victim of this. And Freud himself said, this is a neurological condition, writing, Ganapati Muni, if you look through other scholars who wrote about Ganapati Muni, Shankar Narayanan, for example, and Natesham sir, himself, I'll get into that now. They observed that Sri Muni was a compulsive writer, but a divinely inspired poet, that should be said, and no trace of personal ambition, not for his own aggrandizement or whatever. So he was intensely doing penance crores of times, Panchakshari, by the time he discovered Sri Bhagavan. And that all accounts say, and this is true, that it is so wonderful for us that these two Mahans would meet, right? As Shankarnarayan says, if Sri Ganapati Muni did not meet Bhagavan, then Bhagavan did not have it in him to say anything. In fact, Brahmana Swami, he was Muni on Arunachala, and we'll come to that, how that happened, how he went there. So Natesham sir, luckily Dennis, see this is like candle lighting another candle, all these assets and books and videos and so on are available, at least in the quantity that are there for us to be very helpful. Here's my question, I'll explain my dilemma, why I said no to Sunita the first time when she asked me and so on, because I grew up with pretty much a Western education. You see, in a Roman Catholic missionary kind of a upbringing on the one hand, there my school buddies are, who are called Dalits and outcasts and so on and so forth, and these districts are very heavily with a Naxalism and a revolutionary fervor as I was growing up, because these are poor districts, So there's a lot of revolutionary thought, leftist thought, which points a finger toward Vedic Brahmanism and so on, and it says, look, what about all this caste and so on and so forth? You are responsible. Brahmanism is responsible. And I didn't quite believe that, but there is this other thing. My grandfather and the scholars around and so on, there is something elevating about them on the one hand, but then also the other thing too. So everybody is carrying this monkey on our backs, right? Ego. And in fact, Ganapati Muni himself repeatedly language, he sinks to the depths of how much you can beg and cajole and plead your master to Bhagavan. I've achieved all this, but the one thing, the scourge of my ego, I have there. Giver of everything desirable, Varada. Though I may be having 1,000 desires, they're all set at rest within the cave of the heart, scorched by the effulgence of your benevolent look. You know, Bhagavan had that vibhuti, that power. We do think that people who met Bhagavan in this person were very fortunate individuals on the one hand, and we do not feel the lack of it on the other hand because Bhagavan is very much with us. But our greatest fascination is Sri Bhagavan's feet. So my question is, how will Ganapati Muni, okay, he is in the family and my grandfather's guru and all that, how would that help me abide at Sri Bhagavan's feet better? This is the question. That was his question too, you see. So I've done all this, I went all places and highest honors from that time, Navadvipa, Oxford of Indian Sanskrit culture. They gave him the highest honor, Kavyakanta, right, when he was not even barely 20 years old. So, all that I got, only one of them sprouts forth, raising its head even now. May my impure ego perish. You know, this is all of our prayer to Bhagavan, right? In his letters, the depth of his surrender and sense of a longing and desperation, you could repeatedly see Sri Ganapati Muni's letters to Sri Bhagavan. Yeah. So the point is, my Lord, grant me the fulfillment of this aspiration. This one, S. Sankarnarayanan says it like this. He was 25 when he met Bhagavan, and Bhagavan was 24. Bhagavan was nondescript sadhu among many sadhus there must have been on the hill, Muni. You know, this Mahatma, Ganapati Muni, steeped in heights of penance and all shastras, mastered all that. He had 200 stalwarts like Apal Sastri who were his disciples. In that state, he goes to Muni, to Sri Bhagavan, and he falls on his feet and he begs like that. I don't think I know the true import of tapas. How should I do this? Tell me. We'll get to that. So that is true humility. This is what S. Sankarnarayanan says. You know, for him to certainly figured it out. He also says that on the strength of his tapas, by that time he was able to figure that out, and then he said we should address this Brahmana Swami as Bhagavan, Ramana Maharshi, and so on and so forth. We do know that. And Kasi Krishnacharya, who was a very reputed scholar at Navadvipa at that time, he said, we are all educated, but Ganapati Muni is education itself. So he was that accomplished in those times, right? So back to Nateshan Sara, he was an 8-year-old boy, and Vasudeva Sastri takes him to Sri Bhagavan, and he loses his body consciousness. He's captivated, of course. That's one kind of fascination. And then P.K. Sundaresh takes him to Sri Ganapati Muni. Ganapati Muni, he says, it's a different kind of captivation. You know, say there is I do not have it here, but it is there in Bhagavan's lore. It is on the website. There is a boy, Arunachalam Ayya, his name was, and he observed both Bhagavan and Ganapati Muni on the hill, and he wrote a poem in I think it was Sanskrit. No, English is what the boy wrote the poem in. You know, and he says Bhagavan is like hot, you know, cool and not saying much, but his grace is abundantly clear. And Ganapati Muni is like the brain. You know, he's all about intellect. This is the boy's observation. Tells you something. Bhagavan liked that so much that he takes it and he translates that boy's poetry into, I don't recall, either Tamil or English, you know, or Sanskrit, I don't recall. It's there, yeah. So this was sort of compare and contrast kind of a thing. And I think Vishwanatha Swami, I think he's the one who said that Ganapati Muni is only second to Sri Bhagavan, none else. You know, that is that one dosham, the dosham of ego. You know, but that is all of our struggle, right? Bhagavan repeatedly made it clear, right? And that's why Bhagavan's injunction repeatedly is that forget everything and investigate this one question. To great scholar like Ganapati Muni, that's his instruction, and to lay people, people of all walks of life, that is his single insistent instruction. You know, but Ganapati Muni had these other purpose. Well, I have to stop myself and complete the story of Nateshan Sir itself, right? 96 years, I think he lived to. And luckily we have the interviews by Dennis, thanks to him, that captured in what should I say, he internalized it, he lived with it. Sundarasaya takes him to Ganapati Muni, and he was captivated, like looking at Jesus, the aquiline eyes and bright, shiny eyes, aquiline nose, and his stature and everything else is really impressed by him. And he fell on the feet of Sri Ganapati Muni. And Ganapati Muni helped him stand up, and he says, Jate Chiranjiva, meaning, darling, live long. Right? So he had the fortune of observing Ganapati Muni, and then he goes at length into the biography, and is moved by the example of Ganapati Muni. This is the thing. My point also is that books are there, and all the content is there, hundreds of books and so on. Even secular sciences, this is true. Say you pick up a book, like linear algebra, something like that. A great Mahan wrote that book or something, But I can, the value of it is only that much, as much as I can internalize and understand what it's representing. Beyond that, it's not value for me, right? So this was my question, and I had a general dilemma, or even a mind, I should say, dislike about the whole idea of scholarship and punditry, that sort of thing. Because I did see, the doshas of punditry, let's say, pride and arrogance and all of that. I was raised in this atmosphere too, you see. So this was back of my mind when Sunita asked me the first time, and also at the time I was going through this hypergraphia, So I would be writing a few years before that poetry, and in Telugu mainly, that's my language, and then short story and this sort of thing, and there is a huge recognition associated with that for people who have some kind of a talent with that, but back of my mind, I realized that what's the big idea, what's the big deal? Nochur Swami gives examples of Avaya, for example. So they were celebrating a poet, somebody who's gifted with literature, that sort of thing. And she stops them and she says, hey, what's the big idea? Look at the weaver's bird, how it in nature, how it weaves intricate patterns and so on. What's all this fascination with poetry? Stop it. She says that. She was a saint, right? Bhagavan himself, in his attitude is clear towards scholars and pundits and so on, is that investigate where it's coming from, right? And in Puladnatu, later verses, he says that it can lead to unnecessary pride and entanglement, right? So this was a personal, definite problem for me. It was not even my job or anything like that. So I was praying Bhagavan. My mom, her name is Kanaka Mahalakshmi, Visakhapatnam's lady goddess. She named me Kanaka Prasad, So I didn't know how to get rid of this thing. I did not want it, but I was writing. So I would take off everything that you write and put it in Kanaka Mahalakshmi's hundi and just beg her that I don't want this, and just help me get rid of this thing. And I know that it's not necessarily a good thing. Then it all left, but what happened was I was composing songs about Bhagavan and his philosophy, Carnatic music, many kritis like that. But the problem with that is that you have to go to individual vidwans and ask them, request them, hey, will you sing this song? And otherwise, it's not. If you have children and so on, if they have some kind of a talent with writing or anything like that, it can be problematic for them. Freud says this. How do they deal with it in this culture and so forth? Let's not get too much into that. But Bhagavan, if there must be one obsession. Let you feed me my obsession and all the songs and everything. Can I please get rid of these songs? You see, and luckily it did settle into that situation. That was my mindset when Sunita asked me the first time. Here I am trying to get away from scholarship and poetry and accomplishment, all of this sort of thing. Now, why would I go and look at this scholar, this poet? Yes, he is in my ancestry and so on. Why would I do that? Bhagavan did not advocate that. It's kind of so I think it's a question that should be investigated, not in this 45 minutes, but Ganeshan sir in Ramanaperiya Puranam, he treats this question, particularly about Ganapati Muni. The question about Ganapati Muni among Bhagavan's direct disciples, some of them, was that he is a Mahatma, clearly a gifted tapasvi and so forth, but he moves near Bhagavan's feet and moves away from Bhagavan. and he goes elsewhere. He goes to Aurobindo, he goes to Sirsi, and he gets into freedom fighting and all that. But what is all this Sankalpa? This was kind of a tacit criticism against this Mahatma, and he was aware of that. He would go to Bhagavan and he asked him questions like, Bhagavan, I understood. First of all, he was so thankful to the Divine Mother that he composed Uma Sahasram, right? That in gratitude that she showed him, Bhagavan, Divine Mother, please tell me, why did you cause your true sons, Brihaspati, Agni, Ganapati, and Guha, to be born in these turbulent times on these hallowed lands of India? Why? So he knew about his past births and so on. I don't know, I cannot have an opinion about that and so on. But Nateshan sir was so moved by this Mahatma's example, he took all of his work and transcribed it and translated it into English. That's a huge enterprise and accomplishment. And one junior colleague, his colleague, Dr. Sampadananda Mishra from Utkav, he explains, this is on YouTube too, the import of that work. But Nateshan sir, around 96 years old, he had to complete that work, and then they were taking him in an ambulance to a hospital. On that day, he heard that everything is published, Ganapati Muni's work. Then he stops at the gate of Sri Ramanaswamy and drops his body. That is how Sri Nateshan sir went. Fascinating personal examples. This is what I was looking for in Ganapati Muni and among these various Pandit scholars and so on too. So because my point was scholarship is a problem, how do you get rid of it and instead abide at Sri Bhagavan's feet, you see. So here Sri Ganapati Muni is referring to Gandhiji, Alcott, who is the founder of Theosophy in India, and then himself, Ganapati, and then Guha. He also called Bhagavan Urdhva. So from previous births, he says that they were all like brothers in tapas, in parents. And he was clear in his mind that Bhagavan was an avatar of Kartikeya, Skanda, right? So these verses here, sorry, this is the Telugu, I cannot translate them into Sanskrit. For example, Jagadam Chakravarti Yasadakata Akshat, Jarada Bhakti Bhajan Sitanam Nartanaya, Sukuti Kopinakhe, Bahulya Tatra Mata, Jagati Sara Bhutanavate Sankaroti. So Bhagavan in the court of the divine goddess, Mother, he is like, among the people who are the bhaktas, so there is, have grace, have kataksham, it is there like a dark cloud, and a Punya Purusha, Mahatma, that is Ramana, is here personified in that court, singing and dancing for these bhaktas. And so on he goes. About him, he is Ganapati, and Mariapadu, another one, he is waking up his nation with models, that is Gandhi, that is Alcott. And then the last one is Gandhi. So this was back of his mind too, meaning, okay, he goes and he asks Bhagavan that if I am enlightened, if I follow this path, which I'm very interested in, will it help me achieve lower goals about gaining freedom for my country, about untouchability and so on? Will I be able to do that? Bhagavan would listen to him on more than one occasion. And then he would say, yes, but if you focus on your tapas, your investigation, then of course, once that is achieved, all these other goals will be achieved. And on other occasions, Bhagavan answered other people too, can I help others when I'm enlightened? And when you're enlightened, there will be no others left for you to go and help, and that sort of thing, right? But this was persistent with Sri Ganapati Muni. Then he said, Bhagavan, I'm leaving. I'm going away from Tirunamala. At one time, maybe he goes and he moves near. And then Bhagavan said, everything is ordained by the divine will. So if this is what you feel. So don't worry, just go and do what you need to do, but always remember yourself. This was Bhagavan's injunction to him. And he said, take Vasudeva Sastri with you at that time. And the Kapali Sastri was his disciple. Let me do. See here, but when he was a young person, right, barely out of his teens, he was already burning. You do know about his birth. I will not go into that. his father in Banaras, Narasimha Sastri, was praying to. Dundi Ganapati, his mother in Arsamali, was praying to. Sun God, Surya, and at that time, British oppressed India so much that there is a general sentiment that what do we do, what do we do? They were burning with that, and they prayed, God grant us a son who will uplift the country. This was their prayer. They had that son. Until 6-year-old, he was dumb, could not speak, and then they gave them the traditional treatment of a red hot iron bar here, and then suddenly he starts speaking, and all his pandityam, his scholarship, innate scholarship, gushes forth. Right? So here, his dad, his father, Narasimha Sastri, told him, so you are so eager about tapas. Tapas is a sacred yajna. It comes to fruition only at the right time for the divine will. One cannot will it by force, so please relax. And then he gives him Srividya Upadesha. You do this, and then at the right time, that mother will show you the way. Yeah. So this is one of his sishyas, Kapal Sastri. There were others too, and they had a strong connection and a presence in Sri Aurobindo's institution and the teaching also. So Kapal Sastri narrates his experience of going to Sri Bhagavan. He says, I went to Bhagavan, I was captivated, but I figured out that the teaching of Bhagavan without any intermediate step, just burning and negating everything straight to the truth, it is not palatable to a person like me. This is the statement he made, but he tries to, Bhagavan gives him, Kapal Sastri, a Sanskrit text, and he says, take a look at this. And he tries to compose slokas, and at one point he gets stuck. And then he tells that to Bhagavan. Bhagavan is not moving forward anymore. Then Bhagavan says, oh, I see, and Bhagavan sinks into his tapas, or rather, I don't know the word for it, so samadhi would not be the right word for it. Bhagavan sinks into silence, and then Kapal Sastri, inexplicably, that last sloka gushes forth from out of his heart and his mouth without his doing anything. The same thing is the experience with Sri Ganapati Muni, Uma Sahasram also. The last 250 verses or so, he had this difficulty on his right hand. He had a boil. A doctor from Chennai had to come and do a little operation on it. Anyway, that it could not go, and he could complete it within those 20 days. So on that last day, he sits down with Bhagavan and multiple scribes. He dictates everything extempore, and when everything is done, Bhagavan emerges out of his silence and he says, did you guys take note of everything that I said? Right? And then he says, yes, Bhagavan. Yeah, that is how Kumar Sahasram was complete. So, and here in Navadvip, Kavyakanta on, right? At the time, this was a very high accomplishment. He also suffered through the jealousies of his fellow scholars and pandits and that sort of thing. In Pandit Sabhas, there was intrigue, and they would try to actively insult him. All of that is recorded in his larger biography. So he understood that scholarship and pursuits like that are not very desirable ends in themselves, but he was compulsively a poet. Yes, and at one place, time to stop. You tell me. Compulsively and without ambition, a writer, a poet, right? And his work is very extensive. That is for another day. Now, Heramba Ganapati, he understood that he is Amsha. And this is here, praying. But always mindful of Arunachala and Sri Bhagavan. Here, Arunachala Rupena Paranamupadatam, Jyotirmayam Parabrahma Jnanaya Kalpadam. So, and even when he prays to his goddess and Ganapati and so on and so forth, always reminding himself and praying back Bhagavan through letters and so on, that grant me that last, removing that last vestige of my impure ego. Till the end, this was his prayer to Bhagavan. But even as that was going on, he definitely wanted to set his country free. This is here, Jallianwala Bagh, and this was after his times. But generally, this was the patriotic fervor in the country at the time, certainly with him. Yeah, here, Chinnam Vinnam Sudaram Sanna Manna Baba Davita Vinnam Etam Patum Bharatakshonim Jaya Vishnu Purumam Shakta. Meaning, I do this penance, but Mother, give me the strength to set this country and my people, help them to get out of this very pitiable circumstance. That is a foreign rule. This was his prayer. Yeah. So, for those reasons, he went and he collaborated with Gandhiji, National Congress, and so on. He advocated, let's make Sanskrit as the national language, not Hindi. And then Gandhiji tells him that, Shastriji, you're not a politician, you're a Shastriya, leave it to us, decisions like that, the politicians. And then he leaves politics soon after that. Then Maunaswami, he remembers him, right? This is in his 20s, right? He goes to Arunachalam because it's a Punya Kshetram. He was doing his tapas there, his penance there. And then Mother, Sahayamba, I think, tells him that to truly, for your penance to come to fruition, there is a Maunaswami on the hill. Go and you seek his refuge. Then it will be clear to you. So he goes there as one time. This was like the third time he meets the Bhagavan. But one of these times, one associate with Bhagavan, he asks him that Suklam Bhagavan Vishnu, the sloka, can you do an anvaya, meaning give an attribution of that sloka, not to Vishnu, but explain that in terms of Bhagavan. Then here is that sloka, Suklam Bhagavan means wearing a white loincloth, Vishnu means you're everywhere, Seshivarna means you're cool and graceful like the moon, and Chaturbhujam means, see, very clever for a poet. Chaturbhujam, I think, four shoulders, but Chaturbhujam, meaning the Kama, Krodham, Madam, Matsam, those four doshas, Bhagavan swallowed them away, right? And so forth. And may he, Sarva Vibhnava Santiya, means may he resolve this nivritti, right? This question I have, and remove this Vibhna. This was how he attributed it. But this one, 1811-1907, that is for history books, that all biographers say, this is what the Divine Mother tells him, Stula Sirasu, from your previous birth, you keep referring to him, and this is that Swami, you go and you request him, basically you ask him for a resolution. And this is Bhagavan's Upadesam to Kavyakanta. So what Kavyakanta says, Bhagavan, I did all this penance crores and crores of times, and I don't think I understand what tapas is. Then Bhagavan was not speaking until that time. So this was all the townspeople were overjoyed when they heard that Kavyakanta was able to elicit these words out of Bhagavan. You see, that is, if one attentively observes that from where what says I goes out, there the mind will be dissolved. That alone is tapas. But however, Kavyakanta was bewildered by the unfamiliarity of that response and said, is it not possible to attain that state even by mantra japa? Can I not do my usual mantra japa and attain that? Then Bhagavan says, if one does japa of a mantra, if one attentively observes from where that mantra sound goes out, there the mind is dissolved, and that is tapas. So it is the greatness of and ripeness of Sri Kavyakanta that he understood that, right? And then he was overjoyed, and he writes letters to his wife and others the next day and tells everybody, the others said, because he was an organizer, right? And he says, do not call him Brahmana Swami and so on. He is Bhagavan, address him like that. And he is Ramana Maharshi because his teaching is so original and so helpful. And he asks his wife with their disciples to come and at once surrender to Bhagavan. This was recorded. And here what he's saying is, that whatever I understood from the limited words of Sri Bhagavan, and from my father's Upadesa, and all the Vedic scholarship and dharma, whatever I understood from that, from Tantra Shastra, whatever I understood, and from my own tapas, my own penance, whatever I have achieved, all of that, invoking Mahamaya, which is, the God is in charge of this illusion, I have tried to put it into words, a distillate of all that I have understood, right? So, and here, may that effulgent light which emanates from the lamp called Ramana and takes the form of Gita on the walls of Ganapati's words, that which is devoid of any substrate, infinite like the sky, complete and silent, may that form of my Guru appear to me. You know, see, S. Subramanian sir, he makes this point too. In these days, this is me saying, not him, we have internet and books are readily available, we can get all of this, right? In those days, in Ganapati Muni's days, there's maybe one train and bullock carts and there's tragic circumstances, swimming and bullock carts getting washed away and into rivers, all kinds of fevers and personal hardship. In spite of that, he accomplished this. Just like Bhagavad Pada, Shankara, that was even in primordial times, right? But we need to remember that in those times, Shankaranaran says Bhagavan used Ganapati Muni as his walk. That's what he says here too, you know, because Bhagavan's preference is to be silent. Yeah. So thankfully, luckily for the mankind, for us, there were these Mahatmas, starting with Ganapati Muni, who felt moved enough to record this in poetry and scholarship. Back to my own prejudice about scholars and poetry and so on, I do realize that it has its place. I do realize that I would rather not do that. This is what I was thinking, and here I understood a few things. Is that first of all, my heartfelt gratitude to Sunita for persisting with this request, and it turned out to be just a wonderful project to me, to the extent that now I turned it into a mini Ganapati Pastaka myself, and there's a beautiful watercolor calendar with Ganapati pictures. So I paint Ganapati pictures and so on and so forth. But I understood that great institutions, even to begin to understand something like Ganapati Muni, like Bhagavan, it's not easy at all. It takes a Shraddha and a diving in of an extraordinary kind repeatedly over years and years and years before we can begin to. So what's happening? It's our own purification. In this journey, also Bhagavan kept, I think, this my interpreter kept throwing these coolie snacks at me. When I started, I did not have much of a resource at all. One book, Nayana, that biography book. But I kept, just a few days ago, I kept thinking, I wish I knew Tamil, because that's my ancestors' language. A lot of Bhagavan's lore is in Tamil. If I knew Tamil, then I would understand Mochu Swami when he's speaking, which is just wonderful, right? Blissful, I would understand that. Now I don't understand. And then I clicked on one of his videos, lectures, and there he goes. Mochu Swami says, he said, Tamil Teriyada, people say, Tamil, I don't know Tamil. Why do you guys say that? This is not about knowing Tamil, not knowing Tamil. That is in Tamil, I understood all of it. And he says, it's not about Tamil, it's Bhagavanese. That is the language that it is. So, Tamil didn't matter. And then, for a large part of that lecture, he is going on and on about Ganapati Muni and his greatness. In that, then I am that. And there is various, I can't enumerate all the references and books and articles and so on, but Nateshan sir itself, Samshavanand Mitra, Shankar, all of these were thrown at me as I was doing this. And slowly, I was less prejudiced about Sri Ganapati Muni's legend, I must admit that. So then that was one lesson for me, among other things. Proceeding with this then, in letters, the depth of his submission, his devotion to Sri Bhagavan. So here, why would a person pursue multiple sankalpas like that? Here there are his own slokas. Let's go and take a look at it. Let's see. There is one sloka. It's beautiful. We should go through that. He explains the idea of why people pursue. Yeah, this is the one. His understanding, Ganapati Muni's understanding. Why is it that we pursue different paths, different things? Ganeshan sir goes and asks Murada Venkatramaya, sir, I'm hearing all this about Ganapati Muni's sankalpams, I don't like it. Was he ambitious like that? Then Venkatramaya he says, why do you listen to everybody? Listen to what Bhagavan said. How do you resolve this? He says, what Bhagavan says is true. What everybody else says is just an opinion. Who will take a listen to what Bhagavan said? And then he says that is Mahasankalpam, that is our Satya Sankalpam. Ganapati Munis. I mean, it's not our station to debate questions like that. Those are imposed questions. Is what a Mahatma's sankalpam was and so on and so forth. But here, his explanation, Evam Vidyam Bijam Samsara Vrukshārajasya Sarvara Yutasya Prarabdha Jalena Doladina. Why do we do the things that we do? He says, the birth and death, samsara is a tree born of the constant turning of life and death. Ignorance, meaning we think that this is real, marked by false discrimination, this and that and me and you and so on. That discrimination is its seed, accumulated destiny is its water. Here they are referring to Prabhupada. Bhagavan on enough occasion accepted that, right? From previous birth, we have some sort of a destiny, and the myriad feelings and emotions, it's juicy fruits. That what we experience, the joy and pride and desire and anger and sorrow and all of this, these are fruits appearing on this illusory tree that is springing forth out of your own prarabdha. That was Muni's understanding, kind of Muni's understanding. So that's what drove him, we must think, through all of these endeavors. Right? If my time is up. Okay, yeah, I'm mindful of that. So, so that is one way how we could understand it. Bhagavan certainly tolerated everybody and forgave the vilest of our sins, Bhagavan. So, he understood Sri Ganapati Muni, right? And notations that goes into that, Bhagavan, anything that Sri Ganapati Muni would write on various occasions, this Chaparinchati is one example, but there are others too. He would carefully right away, notations that says, and I took this to Bhagavan, then this is Ganapati Nayana's word, give it to me, and then he would transcribe that into Malayalam, Bhagavan, in his notebook himself. So consistently he showed that kind of importance about Sri Ganapati Muni's words and his words and his being also. Yeah. So proceeding with this here, he goes around second attempt tapas, Ganapati Muni, and goes through the whole length and breadth of India. Then he goes to, he wins his honor. He goes to Sri Bhagavan. He met Bhagavan, he covered that, and he received Bhagavan's Upadesam. Uma Sahasram was composed, yes, and this is what he is Bhagavan's scribe. That is what this Guru Vidam is saying here. From the silence, that lamp, that light that is reflected on different walls, and through my words, Ganapati's words, and this is how my Guru's form is appearing to me, right? And flawless like the divine river Ganga, this Ramana Gita, right? This is like Bhagavad Gita. This was composed, and if we this was one of the benefits for me. So I had to pay closer attention studying through Ramana Gita as Sunita assigned this project to me in 6 months ago. So this was he says, Galanti Gangeyam Nirvatara Gita Mahato. Flawless like the divine river Ganga, this Ramana Gita, which sprang forth from the great mountain Himalaya, that is Bhagavan Sri Ramana, flows as crystal clear words outpouring from the voice of poet Ganapati through the hearts of earnest seekers, dissolving many pollutants on the way and merges in the heart ocean. This back to my question, what is Sri Ganapati Muni's work? How is it valuable to me, to you? Shall we say all the 11 volumes you read, you study them, they're valuable to you? No, they cannot be. So what is it? Is it his example? Some verse? Is it just the Chaturvrinshad? What is it? So what I would say is that invoke again when Ganeshan sir talks to Venkatamaiga Munavala, he quotes an Upanishadic sloka. Its meaning is like this: what is the path of a bird? There is no set path to a bird. Whatever path the bird takes in the sky, that is the path of a bird. What is the path for a fish? There is no set path for a fish. Whichever way the fish swims in the ocean, that is the path for the fish. This is what the Upanishadic poem says. Yeah. So Bhagavan said that. Bhagavan also said that. Bhagavan said that. Bhagavan, what should I do? This is my problem. Then Bhagavan laughed and said, oh, you're saying it's like your problem, that's everybody's problem. What should I do? Bhagavan said, whatever is helpful to you, that's what you should do. How do you know what is helpful? To the extent that your unwanted thoughts, unwanted behaviors and propensities and so on are contained, that is how you know what is helpful to you. Then Bhagavan, he says, what's the other one? What is preventing me? What is preventing me from staying there, abiding at your feet, Bhagavan? He says, it's your vagrant mind and your perverted ways. That's what is preventing you, right? And Bhagavad Pada in Prasnottara Ratnamalika, right? He says this, Kimupadeyam, Guru Vakyam. What should I follow? Your Guru's instruction. Heram Chikim, Akaryam. What should I relinquish? What should I dislike and leave? That is Akaryam. Anything that is not helping you, that is what you should leave. Yeah? So what is it that we can pick, that I can pick from an example like Sri Ganapati? I think I've shared some glimpses, and that is what I would say on that topic. Now, I think I should conclude now. Yes? Or do we have 2-3 minutes, right? Yes, all right. So, Kapal Veda is, you see, he was steeped in Tantra Shastra and penances of those kinds from the ancestral training, we should say. Natashan Sir details this, Sankarnarayan and others too. This Kapala is skull, Veda is parting of the skull, so he experiences this in Arunachalam, and there is a big sound like that his associates, wife and daughter, everybody heard, and he underwent intense pain. There is a vapor, smoke kind of a thing from here, and that is a mark of the highest, shall we say, enlightenment from a Srividya Upasaka's point of view. So this was recorded in Ganapati's biography by multiple people. And here Vishwanath Swami is narrating the story. I thought I'd stay here. Vishwanath Swami, Ganapati always asked Bhagavan, I haven't seen the forest around Arunachal. I've seen a lot of forest and done penance. Then Bhagavan was really physically, his body also. Mahadev Sastri, Ganapati Sastri's son, would sit on Bhagavan's back and Bhagavan would swim him around in the lake. When Ganapati also was swimming with him. So Bhagavan said, okay, I'll take you, but we need a cool day for you because your skull cannot tolerate heat. So they were waiting for a cool day, and one day it was a cloudy day. Vishwanath Swami says, Bhagavan, today looks like a good day, shall I go and tell Naina? Then Bhagavan said, yeah, go tell him. So then he runs to Palapattu and tells Naina. Then the three of them set out into the forest toward the hill. And then Muruganar Swami, see, this is the other mighty scholar, Mahakavi, Muruganar Swami. See, back to that, what is your path, what is my path? Who will tell? Who will prescribe for us? Nobody. Bhagavan, but there's a silent Bhagavan, right? Muruganar Swami, what happened to his scholarship, his poetry and all that? He didn't go anywhere, right? So he just surrendered. There are many poets like that. Pantu Lakshminarayan Sastri goes to Bhagavan, he says, I'm translating Ganapati Muni's Umasasram into Telugu. He had 100 poems, but I cannot proceed any forward. What should I do? Bhagavan says, go meet Kapal Sastri in Arvindo's ashram. Go there and meet with him. He goes there, he comes, but as a result of that, this poet, this scholar, loses all his interest in such a poetry scholarship. He says, I realize that this is not helpful to me, I'm leaving this. This is what. And there are many others through Bhagavan's law who were helped like that. And then Professor Swaminathan goes into the connection between poetry and Bhagavan's feet. We don't have time to go into that. But back to answer my own question, how is this value? Poetry scholarship. Is Bhagavan saying, is Abhaya saying, uniformly this is, leave it? No, they're not saying that. The value of it is that it can be a helpful bridge in our own individual ways between this and Sri Bhagavan's feet. Poetry can achieve that for us. From Lakshman Sarma, another great scholar. So he says, Swanta Sukhaya, Tulsi Raghunatha Gada, Bhasha Nibandha Bhaktivinoda Matanotu. My mom, hypergraphia, keeps writing, same thing. But she takes all of that and burns, set a match and burn it. So, who, Lakshman Sarma, was also like that. I think he says the same. For my own peace of mind, I'm doing all my master's works into Sanskrit. He says that. Yeah. So this was about Kapala Veda. I think we should conclude in the interest of our time. Periyapuranam, Ganeshan Sar's work, I already shared that. And here's our last slide. Vande Sri Ramanashe, Acharyasya Padabjam, Yome Dashya Desham, Vantamati. So thank you very much.